more on this, we're joined by Mustafa Caner, Assistant Professor of Iranian Studies at Sakarya University's Middle East Institute. Welcome back to the programme. Now, President Masoud Pezeshkian has openly acknowledged the economic pain that Iranians are facing. Is this a significant development for protesters?
Actually, no, because President Pezeshkian, from the very beginning, was making giving these remarks. He at first acknowledged that Iran's economy in really bad situation, and he also um, used a really soft tone for protesters. He acknowledged that their economic demands were legitimate and they were trying to improve country's economic outlook. So President Pezeshkian, from the very beginning, was, talking like that and promising economic, improvement. However, it is not enough for the protesters because, as you know, these protests have dominated Iran's political scene for the last 3 weeks, and although they began for economic reasons, they quickly turned into an anti-regime protests. So while the government at first tried to distinguish between the peaceful protesters, legitimate protesters, and violent rioters, I think this distinction faded in the following days, and it appears that the hundreds of people have been killed from both demonstrators and security officials. So the situation on the ground is, really violent right now, and President is trying to keep his tone, his soft tone, his empathetic tone. However, I don't believe that the protesters, this tone would be sufficient, and the protesters will be contented with these remarks.
So we know the protests are driven by the cost of living crisis. If the rial keeps crashing, does the government have any economic lever left to clear the streets?
The economic improvement is not a short-term thing. These problems are the outcome of years of negligence, mismanagement, and also sanctions. And the political anger that has been revealed on the streets of Iran is the outcome of that accumulated, negative developments. So it's not possible to recover the economy in days or weeks. It needs a long-term reform agenda, and also it needs a dialogue with the United States. According to Donald Trump's latest remarks, we understand that there's a possibility that a new rounds of talks between the US and Iran. However, he also added that before that talks, the United States had to act. I'm not sure if he was sincere. If he was sincere, that means that the United States will try to gain some leverage on these possible talks. And if he was not sincere, it is also understandable because given the threats that Donald Trump used against Iran, he cannot, easily give away or backtracked from that threats at once. So maybe he started to soften his tone. However, all in all, in order to improve the economic conditions, the sanctions should be lifted, and in order to lift the sanctions, there should be a dialogue between Iran and the United States. But before that dialogue, I'm not sure that what kind of action the United States sides will take against Iran. So there is a ambiguity on the ground right now. The situation is not very clear, but in order to improve the economic outlook of the Iranian economy, I think it's not a short-term business. Maybe decades-long, reform is needed, and it is quite difficult for the government of Iran to conduct that reform because that there is a challenge between the internal grievances, and these internal grievances intersect with the possible foreign meddling or intervention. So that's why President Pezeshkian is, experiencing hard times.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Mustafa Caner, Assistant Professor of Iranian Studies at Sakarya University. Thank you very much for joining us.